authentic self, though.
Yeah.
That's the key, right?
Sure.
Well,
If
yeah.
it's-
Well, and I also think, guys, I mean, I always use the box, right? And I say that most people build their own box. And their own box tends to be pretty small,
Right.
Absolutely.
And they
because somebody else
It's
defined
safety.
it.
That's their
it's
safety.
the safety, exactly.
Yeah.
They're routine oriented. They've got their life. They got their plan. They're content, right? But they're in the box. Whereas there is no box. I mean, my box is this big. I don't have a box. And I mean, but not that. And I've never really thought about it like that. I just do stuff, and then one thing leads to another, and I happen to make the connection with somebody, and like again, it's really exciting. And as I said before,
Welcome to this episode of Inspiration.ca, where we don't just talk about inspiration. We show how real people turn inspiration into action, how real people overcome adversity, and how real people thrive. Of course, I'm joined by my pod partner, Ed, the coffee guy.
Konnichiwa.
Dude, I was picking Konnichiwa. I was going to do Konnichiwa today. Did you read this?
Yeah, no, I didn't.
Yeah, you did.
No, I didn't. I just looked it up.
Oh, Ed and I have a game. I always lose, and I lost again. I'm Bill Waters, the founder guy.
And I'm Ed Denyer, the coffee guy.
Oh, Ed Denyer, the coffee guy. Yes.
What were
Did
you
I
gonna
miss
call
that
me?
part?
I don't know. You were probably going to call me something else.
Yeah, I will call you something else. So today's guest has been a true inspiration for me personally. And it's not because he built an incredibly successful business called Cook Homes. It's not because he's a lead singer in a rock band called Ian Richards Project. And it's not because he has long flowing platinum hair, which I hear is going to be gone soon. Let me tell you why I admire this guy so much. So his son and my son played hockey together way back when, and I think this is when I first met Ian. And Ian was one of those parents who showed up for every game. Whenever I saw him out in the world, he was usually out with his equally amazing wife. He was at most fundraisers I attended, and he ran a whole bunch himself, raising tons of money for local charities. He's helped out so many people in our region without anybody knowing. He and his wife are major contributors to the local hospice, and our family benefited greatly from it. And on a side, I urge everyone to make a contribution to their local hospice. You don't know what it means to a family until you have to experience it yourself. So this is why I love this guy. It's his commitment to family, his dedication to community, and his ability to keep those front and center while building very successful businesses. So with that, I'd like to present my friend and inspiration, Ian Cook. Welcome, Ian.
well, thank you so much, Bill. It's always embarrassing a little bit to hear that, but
That's why I didn't give it to you
I think
beforehand.
you're a pretty nice guy too.
Thanks. Okay. Thank God I'm recording this.
Anyway,
Yeah. So we usually get started with Ed and his question.
Okay. Hi, Ian.
hey, Ed.
I live a small life. I'm very focused on what I do. I have a small business, and it is my whole life, basically. So to me, it's really the premise of this podcast for me is to learn about other people and their worlds and what they do and but I'm not too interested in like the big things that everyone else is going to ask. For me, it's what's a day in the life like for you? I know what my day is all about. I'm curious as to what makes your day a day, and that could be today, it could be yesterday, it could have been when you were focused before the music thing, or it doesn't really matter to me. It's more like, what is a normal biorhythm day for you?
Well, I don't know that there's necessarily a normal day, but certainly as we get older, we tend to get in routine. So there's the routine part of the day, sort of I like to, my wife and I have a date at 8 every day at 8 o'clock. And we watch, typically it's a Netflix show. Okay, so that's kind of.
Are we talking AM?
No, PM.
Oh, okay.
PM, yeah, PM in the evening.
So you start your day at 8 p.m. All right.
Well,
good.
no. So, sort of, but in terms of routine,
Right.
Okay,
No, I get it.
and very regular with meals. I do my gym thing 3 times a week, and that's very regular. But in terms of what do I do during the day, it tends to be a bit reactive, and at times I wish I could inject a little more structure into what I'm doing, but I somehow managed to get it all done, and I managed to focus on what is important at that particular day, which is going to impact my ability to continue to move forward at whatever I happen to be working on, and I've never really thought of work as work. And at this stage, I'm still active in my business at a certain level. I go in every day, but I've become way more focused on trying to develop the studio business and the music part of my life with supporting other artists and that sort of thing. But work has never really been work for me. And I think there's been a number of folks in my business that have been in the business for a long, long time. A couple of them have passed away in the last year or two, and I kind of look at those guys. I say, they're my poster boy, and I'm going to continue to do what they did because I don't think that they thought of work as work. So I think if I've learned anything in my journey, it's the fact that I'm very fortunate that I have been able to fill my time every day with something that I find interesting. And there's always something interesting in you, and you're always learning something. Even in my business, after being in business for over 40 years, I still find that there's interesting things that happen, and we have to be we still have to be malleable. We have to be able to pivot and turn and face the challenges of the day. But as far as a regular day goes, I like to go downstairs in my little music room. I've got a little recording set up in my basement, and I like to spend a half an hour maybe working on a song. So acting like Ian the producer, So I've got a Logic Pro Mac software, with a bunch of tracks on a song, and I'm listening to the minutia. I'm a bit OCD, so I'm listening to the minutia of the parts and looking at the MIDI files and lining them all up, and sort of saying, well, how can I make that better? And pretending I'm a producer. So I find that's a really fun way to start the day.
Absolutely.
And then
it's like a puzzle, isn't it?
Well, it's a little bit like a puzzle. We were chatting about that.
We were chatting about that before we started the podcast.
That's right. It's a little bit like a puzzle, and frankly, it's a skill that. So I played in cover bands, other than a short period in my sort of 25 to 40. I've been playing in cover bands since I was 16. And and over that time period, I would say I reverse engineered hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of songs by ear to learn how to play them. This is other people's music, and so what that has done for me, it's given me I think a little bit of insight into how to put a song together. Right?
Of course.
And so I can just because I've done it so many times, and so I think so I always like to spend a little bit of time every day, either in the morning or after dinner. I like to spend an hour and just where am I at and what do I need to do and
Do you have a time of day where you feel your brain's firing best?
Well, you know what I will say, that my brain fires best when I've had a little caffeine. Or actually, when I've had a lot of caffeine, because I become this creative monster, and it's just sometimes I'll sit down. So I'll go home for lunch, or actually I'll wait for my wife to leave in the morning, and she's got to run an errand or whatever, and then I can go in and I can sit down at the piano and I can just pound away without
make all the noise you want.
Make all the noise I want, and the challenge though in the morning like that, I try to ration my caffeine, so I don't like to have caffeine early like that. So I'm still riding on perhaps the caffeine I had the day before.
Wow.
But even so, that's sometimes enough to just enlighten me. enlighten me with just, I don't know, the fingers just know kind of where to go. And
There could be worse drugs.
Well, there could be, yeah. Absolutely. Well, I think is it Balzac, the famous French poet and writer, and he actually has an ode to caffeine. And
Really?
He had a very strange life where it was he credits his success as a creative individual to caffeine. And he thanks
Do
caffeine.
something about that.
But anyway, so you're gonna have to keep me on track here because
I ask because personally I find that for me it's mornings and that's when my brain functions best.
Right.
I'm not a good negotiator after 7 p.m.
Okay.
I'll tend to just lay down and give in to whatever it is because I don't like to force my brain into action at that time of day.
Okay.
But in the morning, I'm firing on all cylinders mentally and always have been. So the blessing of being awake early for me was always I was the only one awake. And so even the dog was asleep at that point in time. So you get to, I don't know, creatively in your mind go through the things that the business wants or needs or the big topics that you need to juggle in your head to come up with some reason. For me, it was always morning.
Okay.
And even I grew up in the restaurant business working nights. And always the morning has always been that, creative mind.
The solitude, you're with yourself.
But also that your mind, you just feel your mind is alive and firing on all cylinders. And I ask because some people find they're night crawlers and they love being awake at night, and that's when they get their biggest achievements done. And in the morning, like I have a son who's 15 and he is the slowest brain at 8 o'clock in the morning. He's just not functioning at all yet. But he's a night crawler so far.
Okay.
And it's funny how you develop different.
Well, I would say that I think I'm very efficient in the morning, and I like to get to the gym early. I find that it really sets me up, for the day. But I would say that my most inspirational or creative time during the day is a couple of ingredients: caffeine and hunger. Okay, so when I'm hungry, I tend to be sharper.
Makes sense.
Perhaps there's something in our genetic
It
makeup.
sounds
We were
like
hunter-gatherers,
absolutely.
10,000 years
No,
ago.
it's very true.
And so
That's
like
interesting.
4 o'clock or 4:30 in the afternoon, when I'm anticipating supper, particularly if I had a light lunch, then I'm dialed right in. I'm ready.
Well, and I understand that because I tend to do fasting. Like I like to just keep about 16, 17 hours without eating. So I don't eat anything until 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. So that's a part and parcel of I'm hungry in the morning. So it's like everything is, there's a need for what you're doing and there's a purpose for what you're doing. So I get it.
Yeah, interesting.
It's a great question because it every time we've asked a guest this question, we get something fairly similar.
Okay.
That it's either chaos or it's not the same every day. There's adaptability. But it really gives people permission to have that. And we encourage it. So often we're told we have to do what somebody says at this certain time, and then that certain time, and then that certain time. That's somebody else's time. That's somebody else's schedule. And if we can do it ourselves as founders, musicians, creators, promoters, whatever, that freedom, actually, and I have a saying that happiness comes from freedom. And freedom builds happiness.
Yeah.
And wherever we can get that in our lives. And it seems to be a common theme with a lot of the people that we get on here. And that's I love the way you responded, because you're in a business that requires some really, if we go back to the Cook Homes side of it and the building and all of the regulations and rules and the timing that is required from different trades and getting things done in a certain time. Trying to play in that game while having that same commitment to the creativity and to the freedom and to the family, as I mentioned at the get-go, maintaining all of that becomes a bit of a juggling game, but you've managed to do it.
Well, for sure, but I think the one thing that is in a lot of cases missing entrepreneurs' lives is accountability to somebody else. Now, obviously, I'm accountable to my great white master, which is my wife.
Yes.
But in terms of, I've been my own boss since I was 23.
Right.
And, and I've often wondered, how well would I have done if I would have had somebody over me cracking a whip and, having to be accountable to someone else.
Terrible.
Yeah.
You would have been terrible.
But,
It would have stunted your growth is kind of what, and I came from the corporate world. I was, independent, and then was in the corporate world for, the formative years of my adult life. So, mid 20s to mid 30s, I was, working for the man in a corporation. And it was, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like when I hear people describe when they go on to these, medicines that are good for their, whatever, antidepressants or something of that nature, where they, all of a sudden everything just kind of goes gray and it's stable, but it's just this gray matter that happens every day. And that's what keeps them, in balance. That's what the corporate world was like for me. It was this
Gray.
Oh my God. It was like sucking the life out of you because you couldn't have highs. You couldn't have tangents. You couldn't have thoughts. You couldn't have ideas. You couldn't have opinions because you were told that
You couldn't have lows either.
No, and you couldn't have lows at all. And so it was brutal. And then once you are out from under those chains, you realize that, it's a lot more risk and reward, but you get to be the person that you need to be and not the person that you're told to be.
Okay, sure. Well, I think when I look back kind of on my, my inspirational curve, if you will, I've often thought that every 5 years I kind of reinvented myself to a certain degree in terms of.
Oh, interesting.
terms
On
of-
purpose or?
Well, no, it's interesting. I say this often that I find myself, when I look back on my life, I find myself to not have had a vision or a plan to get to an end point. I just seem to end up by default.
Yeah.
And generally, I've always ended up in a really good place.
Yeah.
But going back to kind of the changes, it was almost like a 5-year cycle. I would be working in one particular or focusing on one particular thing for 5 years, and then I would shift gears and focus on something else for 5 years, all within the, we don't talk too much about the business, but all within the real estate umbrella, different parts of the business, both internally into the business and then externally in terms of what the business actually produced or sold or was engaged in. And it was kind of like a 5-year rolling thing. And
But not intentionally.
Well, not really intentionally. No, I mean it was almost like an opportunity presented itself, and then and then I all of a sudden I was doing it, and or perhaps before I did it, figuring out how to do it. Right. 'Cause ideally, before you do things, you should figure out how. And there will be a parallel process where you're learning.
Shit,
where you're
that's where I went wrong.
Yeah.
where you want to be. There are a number of things that you're figuring out, and sometimes you figure out that
Yeah, I shouldn't have done
I should
that.
have figured this one out. But overall, I think when I kind of look back over my life, certainly you mentioned freedom. I mean, I agree. Certainly what makes life very fulfilling is when an individual gets an opportunity to be able to pursue what they want to do, and they have the freedom of choice. And they have the opportunity to receive 100% of the reward or the benefit or the buzz from whatever they're doing. And,
Right.
And that's sort of, and I mean, you kind of, I can't say I think about it, or I should say I have to think about it before I say that. It's not something that that I'm noticing every day or anything like that, but sort of when I step back and say, well, what's been satisfying? I said it earlier, I don't really think about what I've done on the work side as work, right?
Right.
It's the same, even on the music side, I mean, I had my cover band, we probably done 350 shows in 25 years, and, corporate shows, and, schlepping a big PA, and, dragging it out of the garage, loading it in the truck, setting it up, doing the sound. I mean, that was hard work, and a lot of work, but, I just loved it. And
Yeah.
it was, as a matter of fact, I I hate to admit this, but I almost enjoyed being the roadie, that roadie piece, and being the tech guy and plugging everything in and making sure it all worked. And we had some pretty complex, PA gear and stuff going on stage. And I mean, that was almost, I got more of a charge out of that than I did out of playing. And there was a lot of problem solving that goes along.
Yeah, I was
with
just
that,
going to say,
right?
did it always work?
Well, exactly. You're following the signal path, and and sometimes something's missing or something's not working, or you're in a different venue. You've got challenges with the venue,
sound and
challenges with the space you have on the stage, on and on and on. But those kind of physical sort of challenges, I really kind of enjoy figuring out how to solve the problem. And,
I think this has answered the whole puzzle thing. You've always done puzzles.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny because I completely understand what you're talking about. And for me, at times, it's better to not deal with people and to fix a machine because there's that ultimate challenge of this has to work this way, and there's a methodology as to how the thing functions. And if it's not working, how do I fix that? And it's you get to kind of embed yourself into that situation, and that's kind of the buildup of the roadie side of it, because no one's telling you how to move the amp or where to roll it or where to plug in. They're just all waiting for you to be done. But the act of doing has now removed you from everything else, and you're just focused on that task at hand. And it's freeing in a way because now you don't have the dependencies, and then all of a sudden now it all works, and now it's changed the page to now we're the performers, and now it's different again. Yeah. So I get it, 100%.
Oh yeah, and I mean, and I'm, I mentioned earlier, I think definitely on the OCD spectrum, and so for me, it's very like things that aren't important to other people. Like the chords running neatly on the stage, and
I was worried about what you were going to say about my chords here.
Well, I noticed. I wanted to fix this. I'm starting to twitch a bit, but I can hold back.
I did that on purpose. I knew it.
But it's and I don't know why I'm like this, but it's a simple thing. It's a simple thing in the evening. So. My wife is a multitasker. Okay, she can do like 3 things at once, and she's really good in the kitchen. I always say my last name is Cook, but I say I am a cook in name only. Like I just don't cook. Okay, but I'm really good at cleaning up. Right.
So how do you feel about dishes in the sink?
Well, dishes in the sink's a problem. But what's more of a problem though is our dishes. Just thrown. In some kind of disorganized pattern in the dishwasher. That's really hard.
Dishwasher.
Really
I get it.
hard.
I'm an organized dishwasher as well.
Oh yeah. So pretty much every night, and my wife says, "Oh no, honey, I'll take care of this."
No, you won't. I'll take it. It's okay.
No, you can't do this.
You
wrong.
worked hard, honey, today.
That's right.
And it's my turn.
I had a lovely meal from you. Thank you so much. Let me fix the dishwasher. So I don't know how that happens. I don't know where it came from.
I know.
But anyways, and it's actually going back to the music thing too, and I touched on this a little bit before, but I'm a piano player, and so everything I do on the writing side of music comes from the piano. All my songs are piano based, and they start as a piano based. I'm really I'm a piano player, or I'm really a guitar player in a piano player's body. Like I always wanted to play the guitar, and I never really did. But so therefore my songs become guitar songs, but they start as a piano song. And they had this wonderful, protocol called MIDI, which allows me to effectively play a keyboard that creates digital information into the software, and then I can manipulate all the notes to any order of perfection that appeals to my sense of order. And I mean, I love MIDI files. And so I could sit there all day long and clean up MIDI files. I could. It's just, and I don't get it.
You are going to be so disappointed when this comes out.
But so yes, and again, getting back to some people, I just recently asked. I did last week actually. I was asked. So I have a new single coming out this week on Friday, and the gal that helps me with my social marketing was saying, so Ian, come on, I want you to tell me what your inspiration was. What were you feeling when you wrote this song? And I'm struggling with that, right? so
I felt the MIDI files were.
outside the spectrum.
That's right. So I did give it some thought, and I think I came up with some what most musicians might say. Because normally, that's not really my thing, right? It's oh my gosh, it's kind of like finishing house. I got to get the damn thing finished, right?
Yeah.
So I got and I got and the other thing I'm pretty good at with, I do draw the line. Like I know when the song is finished. Like some people don't know when the song's. They can never finish a song because they don't know. But for me, generally, it drops in pretty quick, and I know when. Yep, that's good. Okay, that works. And. But yeah, I think that's the coolest thing. MIDI's the coolest thing, and I could spend if you. So Ian, what would you like to do if you could? You said, what's a typical day look like? A typical day, if I had my choice, I would be writing songs every day, full time. That would be my job because it is so on so many levels. I just get a kick out of it, and we're not I'm not trying to impart some deep emotional experience. That what does the world really mean to me? It's nothing like that. It's just the fun of. I'm a pop guy, straightforward. I call myself a simple guy, right? And I just enjoy the pushing all the buttons that have to be pushed. You start with something here and then you end with something over here, and it's always what blows me away is how different it is.
But you say you're a simple guy, but we're talking about layers upon layers upon layers upon layers
of simplicity.
Each layer is simple,
yes.
But you're blending these layers together. That's some tough stuff.
Well, it is and it isn't. Like I think.
Well, it isn't to you, but it is to everybody else that's trying to. And that's normal. I mean, all of us have that complexity, but we're simple.
Yeah. Well, I think what happens, Ed, for me, first of all, on the business side, I've been doing the same thing over and over again for almost 45 years. Okay. So I understand, that like the back of my hand.
So you never started the house in the attic?
No.
That would have been novel.
That would have been. Nobody's ever done it.
Right. And,
differentiation.
And as much as I tend to berate having taken classical piano lessons,
see, this is getting into something here.
As much as I was
going to ask how you started in music.
Yeah, well, I started. Well, really, it was. I would say it was peer pressure. Because a number of my friends were taking piano lessons, in my sort of 8, 9, they were all taking piano lessons.
How old were you?
I was probably 9 when I started, which was relatively late, and so anyway, I started taking piano lessons then. But, I think anybody that has taken piano lessons, and I got to, I guess grade 9 conservatory, which is reasonably far along, you inherently have the ability to pick up harmony pieces. There's certain things that naturally happen because
you're around it so much.
Because your ear is trained. You've done it over and over and over again, and there's things you're going to pick up that are almost second nature. That's and it's not that it's. It comes back to that 10,000 hours. I don't think I spent 10,000 hours playing. Maybe I have, but it's more about anybody that does it. It's a technical skill. Anybody can learn how to play the piano. Just like the other one I always tell people. Well,
not anyone, because I made it to class 3 and they told me not to come back.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And I never went back to music.
Yeah.
So.
and the other one I always remind people of course, which is very important, is I can't tell you how often people say to me that they can't sing. They can't sing. Well, we all can sing, okay? Whether or not the timbre or the tone or of our voice is going to be something that's pleasing, we can all learn how to sing. Singing is a technical skill. Singing is like walking. You're using muscles in your diaphragm, and in your throat, and in your mouth. You're shaping your lips. All these things, your ear as well plays into how you sing in terms of what you're hearing and what you're not hearing. But anybody can do it. But it's a question of, and I really think it's the same thing with the piano too. Anyone can learn how to do it, and the difference is the great divide aside with a musical instrument is you know, I'm a technician. Okay, I'm not an artist on the piano. I'm a technician. Okay, and I never really had, you know, that innate ability, that skill set that you know that you know, you can compare, you know, like a sprinter or you know Connor McDavid as a hockey player. I was never that guy, right? Plus I had some physical restrictions when I was 10 years old. You know, my piano teacher, Mrs. Isaac, she was from Sri Lanka. She told me that I've got spoon thumbs, got terribly small thumbs. She said I'm 10 years old. She said, Ian, you have the thumbs of a criminal. So that is, you know, so frankly, that's why I got into the development business. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Inspiration comes from different sources.
That's
The Sri
right.
Lankan piano teacher.
That's right. Whacking my hands.
Whack-
Curve
yeah.
your fingers. Whack.
Wow.
Definitely old school.
Yes.
Well, we've talked to many musicians that have some have never had any formal training, and went on and did extremely well.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And some have had tons of formal training and did very well.
Right.
Some of those with very deep formal training have difficulties being the feeling artist who can just hear something and play it, or jump in and they need the music.
Right. There's a dependency there.
There's a dependency. Yeah. And it's a hard transition to go from that technical player to that sort of creative on the fly improvisational player.
Right, and I mean the challenge that once you become an improvisational player or somebody who learns material by ear, is you do unfortunately lose your ability to read. Right, and over time, I mean, I can still read, but certainly nothing like I could, you know, when I you know, finished, you know, in grade 9. I mean, like I'm a whole different cat now. Yeah. But you know, it's certainly something that I could go back to. But for me, you know, honest, and the other thing about me
is... you don't have to.
Well, I don't have to. And the other thing about me is that, you know, like I really can't sit down and play a lot of songs on the piano. Okay. I mean, I could learn them, but I've just never really, you know, in the band, I used to, you know, I could play a few songs in the band, but in the band, a lot of times I was playing parts. Okay. So, you know, I was playing a horn part or a, you know, a little organ shot, or, you know, maybe sometimes percussive stuff, you know, a little synth lead, but very rarely was I actually playing a full piano piece on the keyboard, right? And so for me, you know, I just like to sit down and improvise, and I'm become a pretty good improviser because you know, I have enough technical skill from taking piano lessons that stuck with me all these years. But I just love to sit down and improvise, and frankly, that's where, you know, it's one of the two areas that you know, my inspiration for songs come from. Okay, so the first one is, as I'm improvising, I'll come up with a 8 or a 12 bar, you know, piano movement, and then I'll lock it, and then I'll run downstairs. Actually, I've got a thing coming out this week about that on my social page. But anyway, I run downstairs, and then hopefully remember it, and sit down, turn on the computer, turn on the controller, and then replicate that. Boom! I've got it locked now. I've got an idea. Okay, that's the first way. Yeah. And the other way, getting back to, you know, inspiration. When I started really writing in earnest in the fall of 2019, I probably came up with 40 melodic hooks just after the gym, in the shower at the gym. I'm in the shower at the gym, and all of a sudden something hits me like a bolt of lightning. And I, you know, it's a lyric, and it's a melodic movement and phrasing to match the lyric, and I would sing it over and over and over and over again. I run out to the truck, and I would sing it into my phone.
Really?
And then that would become the basis of my next song. And then I would take it. I would go back to the house. I would listen to it. I would sing it now. Okay, because now I've got some options to sing. Because, you know, singing into the phone, you know, pitch and, you know, whatever. So I'd sing it a couple of times into the microphone on the computer, and then I would create a piano chord structure against that, and bingo, that was the beginning of a song. Jeez. So and I had that, you know, at least 40 times. So I was going to originally call my first album, I was going to call it Phone Songs, because all the songs were sung into my phone. Matter of fact, they're all in here still, you know, like 6-7 years ago, they're all in here, which is really
It's
kind
better
of,
than shower songs.
well, it's better than shower song.
I think that was taken anyway.
Yeah, that was taken. Yeah, but I mean, it's just one of those things, and sometimes it's improvising, and I would say it's probably been 50-50 over my writing career over the last 6 or 7 years.
But interesting that you're not intentionally trying to figure something out. It's coming to you.
It just comes to me. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that's the freedom of that. If you can get yourself into a comfortable place,
Yep. Yeah.
you allow yourself that.
It's funny, I don't have any skill in that area, and nothing.
Not in music, but you have it in so many
No,
other
I know, but no
areas.
song ever comes to me. But,
Right, okay.
but the point I was going to make is, it reminds me a little bit about a lesson that I learned a long time ago about sleeping. And people have this thing about sleep, and that I need to get enough sleep. I need to get my hours. I need to be asleep by this time. And I worked a night job at one point in time, and I was the night waterer at a local golf course.
All right.
And so I had this crazy lifestyle for a summer that I would wake up and go to sleep and wake up and go to sleep, and I'd take naps and then I'd go water the course in the middle of the night and then play golf in the morning. The one thing that it taught me in general was that I learned from then on to only sleep when I need to sleep and not fight against not sleeping when your body doesn't want to sleep.
Right. Yeah.
And once you achieve that ability to know the difference, then you can break the paradigm. I get it if you have a 9-to-5 job and you have to be at the office at a certain time, and then people stress out about that they have to go to sleep and then they can't function, and then all of a sudden they're junk for a while. Yeah. But once you understand that, I'm all about if I need to sleep now, then I will go to sleep because I can shut down, and then I know I'm much more productive after. And I had spurts of that earlier in life where, tending bar and painting houses, and there's this, you never know when you're going to be awake, but you take that 20-minute power nap and it reset the mind to continue. But it's the same thing, is that once you understand the how, then
I used to feel guilty.
Did you?
I used to feel guilty about taking a nap in the afternoon.
Yeah,
that's such a social.
No, not anymore.
No,
but ever since I started it, I was like,
but it's
whoa.
a social constraint that you become much more effective if you are lethargic because your body needs sleep. Fighting against that is so much worse than just submitting for the time your body needs to reset, and then you're so much more productive. But society says, "Oh, you can't do that."
Well, there's an interesting paradox about sleep, and I know that you've done some running and that sort of thing, and so I did a lot of running and a lot of long distance cycling and marathon running and that kind of thing, and as I got fitter and fitter and fitter and lighter and lighter and lighter, and like really being very active at an extreme level for probably about 10 years, I found I expected to sleep longer. And I expected to sleep more soundly.
Yeah.
When the opposite, it was a paradox. I find like 4 hours, I'm like, it's like 3 a.m. and I'm tossing and turning. I'm done. Like getting back to what you said, sleep when you need to sleep. I would sleep, and then I was expecting to sleep for 8 hours, but I didn't need it because my body became so efficient. That was one of those so interesting little asides.
That's true. That's very true.
It's interesting how that works. But anyway. Now, I do enjoy, I will say, I do enjoy a nap after lunch, a little, not all that often, but I try to.
I still power nap. And like, even yesterday, we got home, I was in Tilsonburg for a soccer game and came back, and after the road, driving, and I sat down for a minute, and I was like, I'm out. Passed out for, I think it was like 23 minutes. Yeah. Came back out. Hey, I'm back. And I was ready to go, and went and did all this other stuff that I had to do. But if I didn't, then I know that for the next 6 hours, I'm dragging ass and not getting anything accomplished because I didn't reset. And the body's saying reset. So reset. Forget what you think you know about Colombian coffee. This isn't just another bean. This is the raw beating heart of Santander in your cup. We pull this liquid gold directly from the soul of its lush, elevated landscapes where generations have poured their very essence into cultivating something extraordinary. Every single sip isn't just a journey, it's a declaration of flavor that screams Colombia. This is Santander, pure and unfiltered, at its absolute finest, the unmistakable soul of a nation's craft. From our earth, this coffee is simply done right. Taste the damn difference.
So let's go back to. I want to understand how you became who you are. Like the early days, Like,
Well,
what were
okay,
your
well-
parents like?
Well,
What
my
was your
my
family life
my
like?
parents, my father was an officer in the Canadian Navy. So
Oh,
I was actually
interesting.
born in Victoria, BC. I'm the youngest of 7, and then he finished his career in Ottawa, and then he had a science degree. So he ended up getting a job at U of W. That's how he ended up in Waterloo. So he was a staff guy in the University of Waterloo. And his father was a bank manager. Both of my parents are from Eastern Canada, so my parents were very, very waspish, very proper, very structured, and almost to the point of I would say my brothers and sisters more or less maintained that level of structure, whereas I was a bit.
Where do you fit in the whole?
I'm the
brother-
youngest.
You're
I'm the youngest, and I would say that I was the least. The least structured in terms of.
They gave up.
Well, yeah,
The Kool-Aid ran
He's
out.
on the
Well,
one-
I used to always, my father used to always call me my oldest brother's name. but I mean, again, I was blessed with like just wonderful parents.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it was, but I was always hustling. Okay, like when I remember.
How many kids?
There was 7 of us.
Oh, okay, this
and
makes sense
a
now.
big
Yeah.
age difference, right? But I was always hustling, and I remember I was a Boy Scout when I was in my early teens, and I think 3 years in a row I sold the most Boy Scout calendars of any other scout in Waterloo region, right? And then I had lawn cutting
Did you do,
contracts.
apples?
What's that? Apples? Yeah, apples too. Yeah, apples. But what I used to do, of course, I grew up beside the university, so I would go down and I would work the residences. It was 50 cents a calendar. I just walk up and down the hall. I'd sell bags and bags of. I'd outsell everybody else by a good time.
What scout troop were you in?
Well, it was. I can't remember which one it was.
11th?
No, I
Waterloo?
can't.
Was that at St. Mike's?
No,
Oh, okay.
it wasn't at St. Mike's. No, it was at
right.
Holy Savior. And
Oh,
anyway,
okay.
but
Sorry.
but yeah, but like it was
Just
like
meat.
so the other, but it's interesting too, of course, and I grew up as a Protestant, a Church of England boy, right? And what was interesting about scouts and about hockey, as I played hockey as a kid, was that's where I met the Catholic kids. Because otherwise,
Yeah.
I never met the Catholic kids,
Yeah.
which was kind of a bizarre thing, right? Like they're living here in my corner, I don't even know who they are, right?
My kid was Catholic, and that's how we met the Protestant kids.
Yeah, well-
That's how we met your kid.
Okay, there you go. Oh, exactly. There you go. Of course. But getting back to it. So then, then I started, I started cutting lawns, right? And I had 8 lawn cutting contracts. Then I got a job at the shoe store, part time in high school, and I was cutting lawns. I was always hustling, right? And that just kind of became my. And then of course I got into the music thing, and that was a whole other hustle,
Yeah.
And I remember, in the my early 20s, and I had a full time job, and I would do like 1 6-nighter and 1 weekend a month, and had a full time job. So I've always had lots of energy, and I've never really, I don't know, I've just, as I said, it's never seemed like work to me. It's just, I just do stuff. And,
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I started. And then I was very fortunate. I married into the business. My
Right.
father-in-law was in the business before me, and and he was tough. I mean, he was a really tough, old school guy. Had worked really hard and was very successful, and was a huge mentor for me.
What was the name of the company?
Well, I mean, it was his name was like Willie Ristow Construction.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I mean,
but it was a big name.
Well, he was
He
an
did
apartment
quite well.
builder. He was
Yeah.
an apartment builder. like small walk-up type things.
Yeah.
And then he got into land development, and that's kind of how I got into the business, because he, I sold my first house in '85, and he would feed me lots, on a little development deal. So it allowed me, I was able to maybe hit above what I should be hitting above in terms of inventory, because he was significantly reducing
Right.
my risk on the land side, on the lot side, and
But I say a lot of the very successful people out there had someone do that for them.
Yeah.
If we could all lift somebody else up when we can.
yeah.
It's funny because I love, engaging with youth and bright young minds, and I never had that opportunity. When I was growing up, nobody did anything of that nature for me. What I did was wrong. It wasn't what I was supposed to be doing, yada, yada. So no one, never got that support from people. And people also, the industries I was in, the restaurant business, no one wanted to hear the ideas of the kid in the dish room. No one cared.
Right.
And so it was constantly you're being pushed down for asking questions or looking at ways to improve. So as an adult, I've always, been approached, and I always take the time, and people are like, really? You're going to sit down with a high school student that wants to know? Yeah. I had one the other day, and it was like they sent me 21 questions of how I got started in the business. And I sat down and answered each and every one of them and responded. And the girl was blown away. Yeah. She was like, "Oh my God, thank you so much. I didn't even think you were going to answer me." And I was like, it's so important to have somebody give you the time of day if you're smart enough to ask the questions, and someone will answer them. And that's,
but here's the thing: if you're smart enough, and what you did with Willie was be smart enough to know that you were hitting above your belt.
Yeah.
And you put everything into it to make sure that you succeeded at it.
Well, and I mean, and again, I go back to my default. It was very much by default, but first of all, my Willie was all about work, right? and was not a good communicator at all. So I was, got to the point where I had to almost start to read his mind and anticipate, right? and figure out, what.
Was your dad like that?
Oh no, my father was completely opposite.
Very much a communicator.
My father was a master communicator, polite, and my father would go to the library every week and he'd get 5 or 6 books and he would read them. Like my father was. My father would be the kind of guy that on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, phone a friend, you'd phone my dad.
Yeah.
Because he knew his knowledge was like unbelievable, insane. He knew something about everything. And of course, he was the kind of fellow that if he was going to buy a microwave, well, he would get Consumer Reports and he'd read up to buy a microwave. So maybe that's where some of my...
your OCD comes from?
The apple doesn't fall far.
Yeah, there you go.
Even though he's an in-law.
Unless someone kicks it down the road, it's going to be really close to the tree.
but so much. So you've all heard about luck, right? Which is where the convergence. Seneca said this. The Roman philosopher. It's where where opportunity meets preparedness.
Right.
And there really isn't anything really lucky. I still think there is luck. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that, so first of all, when I started in business in 1985, the business had just gone through, 1980, 81, 82, 20% interest rates. Right. And right. So I was able to get started and my timing was really, really good. And I look back and there's been a series of things that I've done that it's been about timing.
Right.
And it's been about timing. And then it's also about having the very good fortune of connecting with people who are just absolutely the right people at the right time.
But it's connecting.
It's connecting.
It's really, you need to be with people, connecting with people, not on LinkedIn.
Yep.
You need to be face to face.
In the music, I mean, Bill, in the music, if you were seriously considering a career, and as a matter of fact, David Foster's got a little thing on, I don't know, on Instagram or on Facebook, and he says the most important thing about getting into the music business is networking.
Right.
You have to network. And I mean, you're as a musician, you're a commodity, and the getting back to what you talked about before about high level musicians, they may be extremely good at performance, okay, but they, first of all, they don't know anything about the industry,
right?
And most importantly, I remember there was a guy on the circuit, back in the early 90s. There was always these, we had Noella Beck, Changing Gears in the New Economy. You had Diane Francis, all these people that were say, David Foote, Boom Bust Echo, all these. I used to go to these home builders conferences, and then there was always like sort of the speaker, the idea of the moment. Right?
Yes.
So one year we had this guy from Quebec. His name was Jean-Marc Chipwood, and his shtick was living is selling. Okay, and I mean that was one of those. He's always stuck with me versus all of the other people that
right.
I'd heard over the years.
Thing of cassettes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He had the self-improvement cassettes and the book. The whole.
Listen to it in the car while you're going.
Well, a little
I'd
bit.
have to explain what cassettes are.
And and of course, and unfortunately, I probably got the cassettes. I'll be frank, I probably never listened to them.
Yeah.
But
I've got a whole bunch of cassettes too.
But I really, the point of it all was cutting through all the crap and recognizing that interpersonal skills, the ability to sell yourself or sell your idea, that's really what is so very important in life. And I can't, and I've seen it over and over again. I guess, if I was to say, well, Ian, what are you, and I remember I worked with a business consultant that, actually starting in the late 90s. And I was just kind of maybe in a bit of a funk in the business.
Yeah.
And then it kind of came down to I always use the Ray Kroc analogy when people ask Ray Kroc what business was Ray Kroc in. And Ray Kroc said he was in the real estate business because he owned the best corners in America.
Right.
And for me, I always thought I was a house builder. I was in the housing business. And then it sort of, we kind of made this turn, right, to realize that, no, I'm in the retail business. And I just happen to sell houses.
Right.
So then what becomes important? And so I guess my lesson there for people is it's really important that you understand what business are you actually.
Yes.
Well, what is your number one objective every day when you focus on developing your business and delivering a product or service? What are you really trying to deal with? What are you really trying to achieve? And I think that's a real important element that a lot of people, they getting back to the music thing. They're very good, performance piano players, but they don't know how to sell themselves.
Right.
And they don't know how to, and it's a real shame because these are tremendously talented people.
Hugely.
And, so every
the other thing I would say is I completely agree with what you're saying. I don't think it's a shame.
Okay.
I think there has to be a lot of those that don't do that, so that the ones that do actually mean something. Yeah. Because if it's not a shame, there has to be lots of really good musicians that can play a piece and not perform, or else performers wouldn't be what they are.
Right.
So I think that in every vein, there's people that can actually do the thing, but they can't market it, or they can't sell it, or they don't want to, or they don't care to.
They don't. Right.
So, sure. But that makes the performer the special one because they were able to take that knowledge along with the other knowledge and create something out of it that made it special. Right. And like you see it in all walks of life and in all types of business and in all types of engagement. There's people that are super, super talented, but that's all they need to be is super talented. They don't need to showcase that. But then there's the ones that need to take that and put it together with something else that'll make it special.
Right. And it gets back to sort of having a myriad of skill sets, that you can, I'm never the smartest guy in the room. Okay. But I've been fortunate that I have a number of skill sets. I'm a good technician in the field. I know how to move earth and I'm getting back to the piano, I know my limitations as a piano player. Right. But I say, I'm not a particularly good piano player, but I'm good enough to be able to apply my skills for the purpose of writing, for example,
right.
which is sort of, that's kind of my goal. I want to write songs, right? And I'll never be, a virtuoso performer out there. That's not my shtick. But I will be able to put together songs because I just have enough, knowledge and a broad experience base in music in general.
I go back to that thing about layers.
Yeah, layers. Exactly.
The piano is a layer. It's just
it's
one layer.
It's one layer. That's right.
There's a whole bunch of other layers that you add, and you have to understand how those interplay.
Exactly.
And how they work together.
Exactly.
And that becomes the artistry.
And that's the special part is the how do you gyrate the layers so that you end up with the hole that goes all the way through to the other side and allows you to achieve. Yeah. But it's not straightforward. And if it was easy, then everyone would do it. Yeah. So it has to be unique enough, a series of talents and a combined series of talents that together make it special.
Well, yeah, and you pull out, you pull things I was saying before, just the fact that I've done all that reverse engineering on other people's music, right? I take that for granted, but fundamentally, that gives me a certain skill.
Right, those are building blocks.
Like a building block, and it's almost second nature. And I'm hearing something, and I know that's got to resolve to this, and I can't tell you why. It's kind of like I'm not an architect, okay? But I know when I drive down the street, and I call them U-builds, right? When I see a house that somebody has built, right, and they have no concept of architectural design, like zero, right? The window's too high, it's too low, it's too wide, it's too narrow. I could go on and tear apart the design, and I can't. An architect will study the elements that allow them to make that very objective comment. No, that window's in the wrong place. I mean, I can't tell you why. I just know it is, right?
Yeah,
and
because you've been around the music for
I've
so
been
long.
exactly. It's the same
You've
thing
been
with the
around
music
the houses
too.
for so long.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
just it becomes it is the 10,000 hour thing, and it's also
But it's I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, I was going to say, the other thing I find very interesting with music is that I think that I think by and large, most songs could be hits. Okay, most songs could be hits, and the reason why I say that is so when I'm working on a song, I'm working on a new song. I mean, I'm listening to it, I don't know, 300 times, 400 times, I don't know, as I'm building the song over and over and over and over again. And so all of a sudden, because of familiarity, that song is so familiar with me. It's so, I go down, I sit and listen to it because I'm working on it. I'm going, man, I really like this song. It becomes my favorite song. Right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then I'll finish a song and I'll put it on the shelf. And then I'll come back to it 6 months later and I'll listen to it and I go, it's okay.
But why did I ever like this?
But 6 months ago, that was my very favorite song.
Yeah.
Okay. So my point on that is this notion of I think familiarity in terms of, well, what do you think, Ian, makes a song successful? Well, it's the opportunity to become familiar.
Right.
Okay. That's what makes a song successful, right? I mean,
That's why program managers were so popular in radio stations.
Of course.
Those are the friends you needed to make so that they would have the repetition of that one
repetition.
song.
That's
and there's
right.
a familiarity.
That's right, and it locks in. People lock it in, right? And I mean, obviously, I have no delusions about getting to the point where where everybody's going to hear my song. And for me, it's really not about that. I mean,
What is it about?
Well, it's
Because I wanted to get to that because
okay,
you started
all right.
2019.
Yep.
You said you started
Yep.
pouring yourself into writing
Yep.
songs.
Yep.
What was happening in 2019 that you said, okay, I want to start doing this?
Well, I had been spending a lot of time improvising on the piano. Okay, and I'd done a couple of songs in the year before, kind of like phone songs. I'd come up with something, yelped it into the phone, and I had an idea, right? And I just found more and more that, and I go back 20 years or 25 years ago, I took an online course to learn one of the recording softwares called Digital Performer, and it's like a 16-week online course. It was like the early days of online courses, and the objective of that was to write a song, which I
Right.
did. I went through I had a very complex front end interface. It was a very fancy digital mixer, and it was and I was still too busy with the kids, and I didn't really have the time for it, right? So now it's 2019, and I seem to have an endless supply of song ideas. And so I said to a young fella, listen, what do I need? And he said, well, you need this and this and this, and then he ended up coming over to my house for 2 hours twice a week for 7 months. And then I was inputting information, and then I was learning. He was teaching me how to use the software. And I don't want to be an engineer. I just want to be able. I want to be good enough to be able to put together a demo. And then once I've got a demo finished, to be able to line up the MIDI files and make the notes bigger or smaller, louder or softer, to appeal to that. But really. I think that, and again, I'm drifting here now. I've lost my way in terms of where I want to go with this.
But in 2019, when you...
Wait, 2019. So that's how I started, and then we got into COVID, right? And then by the spring of 20, I had 50 song ideas put together already in like 5 or 6 months, and then I ended up working with another fella who introduced me. He said, "Well, listen, Ian, if you really want to do this properly, you need to get good players." So I ended up getting these sessions players.
You've got amazing players.
Yeah, like I've got like world class guys. I mean, that ended up working on my recordings with me. I'd have. The song laid out, and I'd have another guitar player that done the parts, but then we would take it to the next level and get these pros on it, right? Starting with the rhythm section, the drumming, right? And then all of a sudden it's 2022, and now I've got all these songs, and at this point I've got like probably. With professional players, I got 40 songs to professional players, and I've got maybe 15 that are mastered. They're completely finished, and it's like, well, what do I do with these? You know,
An album?
yeah, well, an album, well, exactly. So I just, you know, as luck would have it, I went out for lunch at Christmas of 22 with a local high tech lawyer, and I, you know, he's lamenting the fact that I've got all these songs, I just don't know what to do with them. He said, "Well, Ian, I've got just the guy." So getting back to, you know, to serendipity and luck, I met this fellow
Is this
who
guy
is
I know?
no, this is my manager friend Scott McCracken.
Oh, this is okay.
And Scott McCracken and I got introduced to this fellow. He's a longtime professional manager out of grew up in New York City and you know, worked with some of the top acts on the planet. And his father was a very, very famous sessions player in New York City in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and worked for just about anybody. And so Scott and I had 8 Zoom calls over 2 months, and we hit it off. And he was really intrigued with this studio thing that we were building. So he became my conduit to he became my
I like how
manager.
you say the studio thing that I'm building.
Yeah.
It is one of the most incredible studios I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's
It is and we're in Waterloo. Yeah. This is not like the mecca of audio.
No, but
professionalism.
No, but what we're going to do though is we're going to help kids. We're going to help, you know, local Canadian acts. You know, we're going to give them every advantage for them to get to where they have the potential to get to. And but getting back to Scott, I met Scott, so Scott became my manager, and now all of a sudden I released my first single in June of 23. I released, I think, 16. I got another one coming out. So every 6 weeks or so, or 8 weeks, we release another single. I've got all kinds of them released. Like, I release songs for the next 5 years.
Content is ready.
There's all kinds of content, right? And I mean, and I'm really quite excited because I think I've got some really good content out there. And I mean,
I just heard the one you're putting out.
Yeah,
it's great.
Well, thank you. I'm really excited. Like, I think I've got high quality content and, you know, great production, and you know, I've got a really good team, and so I don't really know what the end game is, you know, other than I'm just going to keep, you know.
But so this transition from I'm not gonna. I'll let somebody else sort of drive the. You're still driving the Cook Homes machine.
Yeah.
But you've got.
I've got a really good team at Cook Homes, right?
Yeah,
so
you can take time away from that to do and commit more of your time to this.
Yeah, I'm spending most of my time now, certainly in the short term, on developing the studio, on developing the artists. I mean, we're
business,
yeah,
and that,
we're
like,
an
you
artist
have a
incubator
whole
there.
strategy behind it.
Yeah, we do. And
This is different than Homes.
Well, it is. It's different. You know, it's completely different. However, I find that you know, there's so many similarities in skill sets in business, right?
Right.
You know, and the first thing is the ability to communicate. You know, the ability to, you know, to have a vision. You know, to, you know, have a, you know, come up with an outcome. And I mean, getting back to my music thing, like, I don't really have an end game. My wife asked me, where are you going
What are you
with
going to
this?
do with this?
Like, you know, but
did you just meet me yesterday?
yeah.
Come on, don't ask me those questions.
Yeah. So I mean, for me, it's a bit of I'm able to indulge in my fantasy, you know, of being a rock star, right?
Right.
And you know, and I mean, and you know,
But you had in 2019, you had the opportunity
to start writing,
and you had the kids were taken care of.
Yeah,
They're independent.
Yeah, everything was good.
All of the demands on your time, or the responsibilities that you felt you were encumbered with.
Yep.
Now started to loosen up, and
I
you
think
could start being you.
In many cases, and with many people, the hardest thing to do is to act on the thought.
Sure.
Because you just it comes to a point where you make a decision and you act on it.
Yeah.
Usually, if you overthink it, you'll never act on it.
Right.
And there's so many people that have analysis paralysis on their lives because whether it be, you know, the risk, whether it be the repercussion, whether it be the, you know, failure of missing out on the other thing, and so they think about it and think about it and think about it and don't take the step.
Right.
It's having the ability to maybe not think about the consequences and not think about all those bad things that, or the risks or anything, and just say, well, I'm just going to take the step and see what happens. That is usually the difference. Because once you take the step and all your knowledge and skill set comes with you. So now you take the first step and you realize, that wasn't that hard. And now I can take a second step. And therefore you keep going down the path. But people's inhibition is usually the biggest factor that stops them.
Connecting with your authentic self, though.
Yeah.
That's the key, right?
Sure.
Well, Well, and I also think, guys, I mean, I always use the box, right? And I say that most people build their own box. And their own box tends to be pretty small,
Right.
Absolutely.
And they
Because somebody else
It's
defined
safety.
it.
That's their
it's
safety.
the safety, exactly.
Yeah.
They're routine oriented. They've got their life. They got their plan. They're content, right? But they're in the box. Whereas there is no box. I mean, my box is this big. I don't
Yeah.
have a box. And
Yeah.
I mean, but not that. And I've never really thought about it like that. I just do stuff, and then one thing leads to another, and I happen to make the connection with somebody, and like again, it's really exciting. And as I said before,
Forget what you think you know about Colombian coffee. This isn't just another bean. This is the raw beating heart of Santander in your cup. We pull this liquid gold directly from the soul of its lush, elevated landscapes where generations have poured their very essence into cultivating something extraordinary. Every single sip isn't just a journey, it's a declaration of flavor that screams Colombia. This is Santander, pure and unfiltered, at its absolute finest, the unmistakable soul of a nation's craft. From our earth, this coffee is simply done right. Taste the damn difference.
having the freedom to be able to make decisions and choices. I mean, like I could certainly, I'm still involved in my business because I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, but I would say most of my friends now are they're retiring and they're not working anymore. I'm going to keep working because I don't think of it as work. But what's really interesting on the music thing is applying the skill set that I've learned in other businesses over the years to this business, and I use I compare myself to, because we're in the artist development business. We're artist incubators over here at our Rupert Street Recording studio facility that we have. I want to learn about the business because I don't know. I'll be frank, guys. I don't know anything about it. I'm learning. I learn a little bit every day. But I'm Rodney Dangerfield.
But you have a team now.
Well, I have a team
that is teaching you
well, yeah,
that. I've been there,
I've
done that.
I've got the team, but
yeah.
Again, I'm Rodney Dangerfield. I'm back in school, and I'm learning about the business by actually doing it myself.
Yeah.
So in a way, that's kind of my end game.
And
Yeah.
it makes you feel alive, doesn't it?
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, it's great. Yeah,
I understand it because when Bill came to me with the idea of doing this,
yeah,
and
sure.
most
Yep.
people say, "Oh, I'd love to do a podcast." Well, it takes work and it takes effort and it takes being in the moment, and there's a lot of things that are attributable to this for us.
Yeah.
And for me, it's invigorating. It's interesting. It's being able to tap into that knowledge that you have and be able to ask questions that will impart knowledge to others. So it's exciting. It's interesting. What's the end game? There is no end game.
There's no end
It's
game.
the end game is doing it,
It's doing it.
and
That's right,
not
yeah.
thinking about
Really,
doing
it's,
it.
it's all about getting friends for Ed. Ed has no friends, so this
Well,
is why I'm doing it for
so-
you. I'm his therapist.
Yeah, there you go. Well, so to sort of just follow up on what you just said, Ed, it's really so. And I always go back to my very, very first half marathon that I did in Ottawa in 2006. Okay, and I did all my training myself, and I remember I was on the Ottawa Half Marathon website, and there's the testimonials on there, and they're like, this changed my life, and so I'm thinking about all these people, I'm reading these, and I'm starting to tear up. I'm going, oh my God, that's gonna be me. So anyway, okay, so fast forward, it's Ottawa Marathon, half marathon day, right? And so I run my Ottawa half marathon, and I cross the finish line. It's like, where's the choir of angels? Like this. Okay, so that was one of those aha moments about it's not the destination, it is the journey.
It is definitely the journey.
It was the journey of all the work that I put into, all the self-doubt that I had,
Yep.
all the discipline that I had to put myself through. That was what was important about that whole process.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And then it was the same thing with a marathon. You do your first marathon. I mean, and all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, like, big deal. You know what I mean? Like it's and then of course, then it becomes if you have any sort of, I mean, I'm not a particularly good athlete, but that doesn't mean I'm not competitive, right? And so then it just becomes a numbers game, right? And
Right, it's the personal best.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
exactly. You're driving.
It's an addiction.
It's an addiction. So thank goodness, I consider myself to have aged out of running marathons.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway,
You got to go into the low impact stuff now.
well, that's right.
Let's
right.
do music. Singing doesn't hurt as much.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, but in any event, getting back to, so, okay, Ian, what would really one of your goals be? And I touched on it earlier. I mean, what I'm really excited about in the studio is to find a young talent, okay, and to impart on them all of the contacts that I have and the knowledge and connections that my contacts in the industry have,
Right.
and then take an artist from, and it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a 2, 3, 5 year build, right? And then end up with somebody that is at the top of the game.
Right.
And we have a young band that we're working with out in Nashville. They were in the studio for 20 days in January, and the kids are really sharp and amazingly talented kids. And so they released their first single off of the EP that they recorded at Rupert Street back in January, and it opened. Today's Monday. It opened today, number 50 Billboard USA Rock.
No way.
This is going to be top 20 for sure.
Amazing.
So, and I mean, and these kids are, they're just so smart and so talented and so focused. They don't drink, they don't smoke, they're like totally dialed into the machine.
And they're sponges.
And they're sponges, and they're. And they're so fortunate to have met, my friend Scott, who is managing them and is giving them 100% focus. And so that's kind of, to me, that's really exciting. And to have that opportunity, and then that's where I'm living. I'm living vicariously through them.
Absolutely.
And I mean, and that because I remember where I was, and I remember exactly when I made the decision back many years ago when I decided to not pursue music full time because back in the day I wanted to be a rock star.
Yep.
And anyway.
It's funny because I agree, and it's interesting. It's not about pulling someone through the journey. It's about opening a few doors, and they have to do the work. They have to make the effort. They have to put in the inspiration. But sometimes in life, all we have to do is open a door for somebody.
Right.
And just kind of let them go through, and like you said, live vicariously through them. And I've had, in my industry, I've had the opportunity to work with some people that have become rock stars in the business. Yeah. And you think, there's no greater reward than what you feel inside for their success. Yeah. And it's not about telling them, it's not about telling anybody else. It's what you feel for having been able to have the presence of mind to know that the door was closed and all you did was open it for them. Yeah. Right. And so I think it's wonderful. It sounds amazing that
this is why you're an inspiration.
You're on the path.
Like even when you're doing the home building, you are opening doors for people with products, people with ideas. Like you were not the door closer. You enabled many, and you continue to do it now on the music side.
Well, yeah. I mean, the music side is really it's a personal. There's a sense of personal side. The challenge that you have when you've been doing the same thing over and over again for a long period of time is it just? I mean, you're still, on the periphery. You're still kind of you kind of get it, but it's not. You kind of. It's not the same, okay? It's not the same. Whereas, now, we're, and this is very personal on the music side because we can help people. We can help young people, right?
Right.
And and we have, what happens as we get older. I mean, I hate to say it, but we do tend to take for granted our life experience. We do, and I mean, and so many things that that we just take for granted. I mean, we've learned them over years and years and years, and so many of those lessons that we learn can really help a young person at whatever career path they whether it's music or anything for that matter.
When I do these podcasts, I always think about the kids. Like, what can the kids take from this, from the conversations we're having, and if they're open to listening to any of the people that we've had, there's been some pure gold that's come out of many lifetimes of experiences that, if you're listening as a kid, pay attention.
Yeah. No, there's, I mean, yeah. I'm so hopefully, well, not hopefully, we started out on this this mission to build a community recording studio in town here. That's all it was.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I had no delusions about, you know, grandeur or, you know, anything. And I mean, it's just by happenstance that I've made a connection. You know, I have a world class manager. We've got a world class engineer. That, you know, Ola Romo.
Yeah.
You know, was Mutt Lang's house engineer for 30 years.
Wow. Shania Twain's.
Yeah, no, I know
Yeah.
who Mutt is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, one of like the top producers. Mutt Lang is the only producer that has 2 albums in the top 10 #1 selling albums of all time.
Oh,
He's
really?
the only one.
It's amazing.
Back in Black and Shania Twain,
Oh, wow.
top 10. I think Back in Black is like 2, and
Yeah.
I think Shania's number 8, right? I mean, and we have Ola here, you know, as our chief engineer at Rupert Street. So, you know, we have this tremendously.
You're building a video studio?
Yeah, we have a video. We have a sound stage over there as
The
well.
soundstage?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
oh my God,
yeah,
this thing's
yeah.
incredible.
Yeah,
You
it's-
took me for a tour, and I just.
Yeah, I mean, so for us, I mean, the model, the reality is the business model for recording studios just doesn't work. It
Right.
doesn't work. It's a broken model. I mean, you know, artists don't have any money. You know, the costs of running a studio far exceed the ability to, you know, to cover your costs. So,
Yeah.
so you know, we're hoping that we'll be able to have a business model that will work out in the long run by working with and developing new artists, and that's really that's the key for us.
So,
And-
it's how can people follow what's happening with Rupert Street?
well, we have you know, we're on Instagram and on Facebook, Rupert Street Recording, and
Okay.
so yeah, we're slowly building a following,
Yeah.
and you know, we have a lovely young woman, Mia, is you know, she's doing a great job helping us on our socials, and you know, explaining, you know, the various pieces of the recording studio puzzle. And there's, you know, like I am a certified gear junkie.
Yes,
you
you
know,
are.
I need treatment for, you know, gear acquisition syndrome, gas. I've got
This
gas. right?
place is full of gear.
Yeah, yeah. So rest assured, you know, the good news for me is there's lots of things to talk about.
Yeah. But we want to hear about the artists too, and we want
Well,
to
the
hear
art,
about.
exactly. The artists are coming now. Of course, you have to be careful with the artists. Okay, so we actually have, starting next week, we have a top Canadian country artist. He had 19 #1 Canadian country hits in our studio for 10 days, and so, and I can't say who. So
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
you got to
no,
be
there's-
so. I mean, and I can't
It's a
go.
line.
Hey, do you mind me taking a few pictures of you with me so I can post them on my socials? So that there is
But
this.
If you were doing that, then it wouldn't have worked anyway. So
Well,
that's the beauty of it all.
there you go. Yeah, but the kids, I mean, you know, the kids have been really great. You know, and we're really excited to share their message and their
Right.
progress. And you know, and we believe that, you know, there's lots more out there, right? The challenge, I mean, the challenge is finding the right act that has everything lining up, the ducks lining up, right? And I mean, it's really
we talked about those ducks
Yeah,
throughout
yeah.
this whole podcast.
yeah, well, yeah, it's tough. It's really
It's
like,
really tough to
it's
get.
really tough to find and you know, where they're gonna stay. You know, it's not. There's no free lunch in the music business. Okay, and the other thing that's interesting. Okay, and this is from a fella on industry, a top level industry guy that I've met, and in Canada, you know, there's a lot of government support for artists. Okay, whereas you go down to Nashville, there's zero government support for artists. So the artists in the States are much hungrier, and they work, generally speaking, they work a lot harder.
Interesting.
They don't get factor grants in the States. There's no such thing as a factor grant, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, and everybody in Canada is looking for a grant. They're looking for, you know, help from, you know, some CBC or from whatever, you know. So it's a hyper competitive business. And you know, I touched on this earlier. I mean, unfortunately, you know, music is a commodity.
Yeah.
Right. There are thousands and thousands of artists that are equally good enough to be successful international stars. Okay. But what separates you know, their commodity from the opportunity of success is having all of those other things line up.
Right.
You know, the ability to sell, the resource issue, their work ethic. I mean, it's a really, really tough gig.
And it's a marathon.
It's a marathon.
It's not a sprint.
That's
And I
the
think
other
that
thing. Yeah.
One of the things that we learned is there's no one-hit wonders. We've talked about this with many musicians, and even though I don't know anything about this music thing, but I do know and have heard very clearly that it's about effort. It's about what you put into it. It's about the marathon. It's not about the sprint. And there is no one-hit wonders. For every one-hit wonder, there was 1,000 songs that didn't work.
Oh, for sure.
So it's but those are parts of that package that you're talking about, is that they have the knowledge and mindset to know those things and withstand them so that they can go for the long haul.
Well, that's right. And I mean, I know even in my own little way, I've learned this through my project. And and Scott, my manager was crystal clear. He says, Ian, he says, you have to be patient. He says, and the most difficult thing that he has encountered over, many years of professional management at the highest level with, artists that we would all know that he managed is the expectation of instant success. Right. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and people being impatient to the point where they're not prepared to put the work in. They expect that it should happen, but no, you haven't. Unfortunately, you haven't paid your dues yet. You got to pay your dues.
You have to work your dues.
You got to work your ass off.
Yeah.
But anyway,
But this is your manager you're talking about?
Yeah.
This is the advice. Let you come talk to us?
Well, you know what? Yeah,
he doesn't know.
I haven't told him yet.
Oh, okay.
And I know that I'm going to get a tongue lashing.
We'll try to be easy on you.
Yeah. Anyways,
I'm just kidding.
We are coming to the end here. We could go on for 3 hours.
Oh, absolutely.
We could.
You're absolutely amazing, dude.
Yeah, this is really interesting. It's dynamic. There's so many things that we could talk about, but I also don't want to take up too much of your time. But I really appreciate the insight, the knowledge. It's great making new friends. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, he's decaf though, so don't forget that.
That's okay. It's important. It's part of it. It's all part of it.
It is.
But no, it's amazing, and it's great to hear, and I'm sure our listeners will hear and want to know more, and so they'll go chase down your social and try to find you. And
then I got to do a plug too for my music project. So
absolutely,
yes.
I call myself the Ian Richards Project. So I'm on all of the the platforms, on Spotify, on YouTube, on Apple Music, on Facebook, on Instagram. I'm always looking for new followers. So just follow the follow button. Click
follow. Yeah. Follow. Click and share.
Right,
click and
share.
Click and share.
My last question: how'd you come up with that name?
Well, I just thought. Well, first of all, the Ian Cook Project doesn't flow that well. So my middle name is Richard. Okay, so and of course, Keith Richards and Cliff Richards, and it just flows. King Richard. That's right, King Richard. It just flows much better, And then anyway, so that's where it came from, and and it seems to be. I'm happy. I was happy. The decisions worked out. Yeah, thank you. It's just not that it really matters because it doesn't, because none of this matters. And this is
fun.
It's fun. The most important thing that that we all have to keep in mind. Okay, that when we go to do something. And push ourselves into a different direction or stretch our limits. Okay, we've got to remember that we're not doing it for somebody else. We're doing it for ourselves.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a short life that we live. Okay. And my advice is you've got to go out and do what makes you happy as a person. And I think that's one of the keys to a fulfilling life. And anyway.
Did that take a long time to figure out?
Or
were you always like that?
Well, I mean, it's not. It's never been about that.
I know I'm trying to stop here, but
I know. It's never been about that. It's been about. It's about for me, it's been default. Okay. There hasn't been a plan. There's never really been a plan. I mean, you end up planning, but there's never been a plan. Okay. So it's always default, and this happens, and then I go down that road, and then this happens, I go down that road, and I try to go down.
You haven't been narcissistic about it.
No,
You
oh, no.
haven't been, and,
Well, I
and
don't
that's
think so.
that's the
Yeah.
danger. No, I mean,
Yeah.
you've maintained an incredible relationship with your wife and your kids
Oh,
and
yeah.
the
Yeah, yeah.
community,
Yeah.
and it's like all those things take work. That's for them, and yeah, for you.
I think the experience that you bring to the table is what makes you be able to say it eloquently as you did. And that's the lesson, is that the time and the experience will get you there.
Yeah.
But be conscious and cognizant that you have to feel good about it, and you
And
have
be
to
patient.
feel good and have the patience to let it happen for you.
Yeah.
But to live it and to enjoy it and not regret it that you didn't have that opportunity to embalm it. So, I mean, I think it's great. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well-
Great insight.
Yeah, well, it's been a pleasure getting to
Make a
hang
new
out
friend.
with you,
Ah,
and
thank
of
you.
course, and
Yeah.
Bill,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
well,
Bill,
Bill,
you know.
whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyhow, thanks so much, guys, for
Oh yeah,
having
you've
me.
been
Thank you.
amazing.
This was fun.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, cheers, guys.
This isn't just coffee. It's the undisputed anthem of St. Jacobs, a rich, bold brew that bursts with the untamed spirit of our community. We've crafted a blend that doesn't just honor the village, it embodies its very character, standing strong and proud just like the people who call this place home. With every creamy dessert-like sip, you'll taste the sweet harmony that brings us all together. It's a real crowd pleaser, designed to ignite conversation and forge connections no matter how you brew. This is the flavor of our village, shared amongst friends, family, and newcomers alike.